So as we continue reading today, I really want you to put yourself in Willow Chance's shoes, okay? I really want you to think about all of the emotions that she would be feeling. We kind of got an intro to this in the first chapter, and now we have the backstory of how this book really started. So here we go, chapter 16. Mai and I sat outside today on the steps of the trailer office. When the door swung open and Dell and Guanghai emerged, I got to my feet and followed Mai down the stairs. Dell's forehead crunched up. "What are you doing?" Mai gave Dell a sly smile. "Willow doesn't want to have a session today, but we were thinking that maybe we could all go for ice cream. Chocolate-dipped cones would be nice." Dell looked like he had just lost bowel control. He stammered, "Willow has an appointment. That's something that's not optional." I glanced off in a distance, and Guanghai couldn't hold back a snicker. Dell turned from Mai to me. "Willow, you've been ordered to come here for behavioral reasons. It's not optional." I looked right at him. I was sent here under false pretense. And for the first time, Guanghai actually seemed interested in what was going on. He said, "Why does she have to be counseled? She hangs out with my kid sister, so she can't be any kind of troublemaker." Dell appeared panicked, and so he started to babble. "You, I, we, must, this, today." Mai came to the rescue. She stared at the counselor, whose arms were now giving a strange flap as if he were trying to fly, and said, "We want to go to Foster's Freeze. You could drive us. You and Willow can talk about her counseling in the car." I could see on Dell's face that he was shocked at how cheeky the teenager was. Then Mai spoke to me in Vietnamese, and I answered her, and she said that she thought our plan was working, and I told her that I agreed. Dell and Guanghai both looked surprised. I guess they were unprepared for us to share the language. The next thing we knew, we were all in Del Duke's dusty car, headed out of the parking lot to the Foster's Freeze, and that's where it all really began. Because as I watched the school district office recede into the distance, I was certain that the old dynamic between Dell and Mai and me was over. And endings are always the beginnings of something else. Remember that line, guys. Chapter 17, Back in the Now. Next of kin. That's what they wanted to know. Kinfolk. Who talks like that? But that's what they're asking me. One of the kinfolk is the Valiant Village, which is a care facility for patients suffering with dementia. This kin is my father's mom. My Grandma Grace sits in a chair in the lobby in front of a non-working fireplace, and she takes her meals on the tray there. An aide feeds her. Gigi's husband died of a heart attack on his 66th birthday, and she started to lose track of things after that. Should I tell them? My dad had one brother, but he was older and drifted away from the family when he found work overseas doing private contracting for the military. No one has heard from him for years, and my dad didn't even know if his own brother was still alive. I tried to find him when I was 10 years old, and from what I pieced together, I'm pretty certain that he died in some kind of accident involving a cargo plane, but I didn't tell my parents. And my mom was an only child, and both of her parents passed away when she was in her late 20s, so I never got to meet them. I don't have any aunts or uncles or cousins, and we aren't that kind of family. We've had the misfortune of a lot of bad health, and now this. Thinking about kinfolk and health histories was the only time I found comfort in being adopted, and now I can't think, I can't even concentrate, I can't breathe. No. After a lot of questions, all I say to the officers is, I have one grandma who thinks every day is Tuesday, and the shadows got longer. I sit on the front steps. The tears will not stop. I almost never cry, but I'm not myself. I will forever be someone else now. The two people I need to get in touch with, the two people who need to hear this most horrible news are not here, and my teeth start to chatter. I want to shut my eyes and make everything stop. I no longer care if my heart pounds in my chest or if my lungs move. Who are they even moving for now? Mai sits next to me, and her hands grip my shoulders, and she makes low, cooing noises. It's the dawn-out call like the doves make, and it comes from somewhere deep inside, and I try to focus everything on this sound. It makes me think that just for an instant of the tiny squeak that the little green-rumped parrot baby made when he fell from his nest in our backyard years ago, and I look over at her and I see that Mai is crying too. The police officers with Del Duke at their jutting elbows make phone calls to the police station, to social services, to a dozen different workers and agencies as they look for someone who will tell them what to do, but I don't listen. But I hear them. I cannot count anymore by 7's, and I hear a voice in my head, and it says, "Make this stop," and that's all that I know. Should they take me into something called protective custody? If they can't locate next of kin, can they turn me over to a family friend? I have to go to the bathroom. And finally, the feeling is overwhelming. I take my house key and I give it to Mai, who opens the door, and I step inside, and I feel certain that my mother will be in the kitchen. My father will be coming around the corner with the garage, and he'll be wearing my mom's pepper glasses. This has all been a big mistake, but the house is dark and no one is there. It is a house now of only ghosts. It is only a museum of the past. We are done. Chapter 18. Willow was finally willing to go inside and use the bathroom. Mai gave her a cold, wet towel to hold on her face, and the teenage girl found a paper grocery bag in the drawer in the kitchen, and she went down to the hall to Willow's room, where she stood for a moment in the door frame and stared. It didn't look like where a 12-year-old kid would live. All of the walls had floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, and they were full, and there were more things to read in this room than in some bookstores. And just above the desk, which had a microscope and an elaborate computer setup, was a bulletin board covered with photographs of plants. Mai moved to the bed, where red pajamas were folded neatly on the espresso-colored comforter. She stuffed them into a paper bag, and Mai turned to leave, and that's when she noticed the top book on the tall stack of reading material on Willow's night table. It was open and face down. From the position of the spine, Mai could tell that it was almost finished. She moved closer and saw that it was a book from the Bakersfield Public Library, and it was called Understanding Vietnamese Customs and Traditions. And that was when Mai knew that Willow was coming with her. She lied. She told the police that she had known Willow for many years, not only weeks, and she said that her mother would sign any paperwork because the families were very, very close, and Del Duke didn't contradict her because Mai was so convincing that he now half believed her story. Guang Ha, unnerved by the police, had stayed the whole time in Del's car, and he hadn't moved a muscle, so Mai was taken as the authority on the situation. As Del pulled his car away, he could see the neighbors coming out of the sidewalk, but Willow, with her eyes closed in the back seat, saw nothing. Del drove as slowly as he'd ever maneuvered a vehicle, heading across town to the nail salon with the patrol car behind him. No one knew it, but they passed through the very intersection where Jimmy and Roberta Chance had been hit. There was still an official vehicle on the scene, but what was left of the pickup and the box truck had been taken away. There were 4 gray coils on the pavement where the flares had burned out, and Del's car drove right over the ash. They swung into the parking lot in front of Happy Polished Nails, and Mai opened the car door immediately. She and Quang Ha seemed to be in a race to get inside of the shop, but Willow didn't move. Del decided to wait with her, but it was killing him. The real action was obviously going behind the plate glass window that had a purple sausage-shaped writing which said, Man plus Ped Euro Style Special, Walk-ins, very welcome. Del read the last message at least a dozen times and could make no sense of it. He had to concentrate. Not only were two people dead, but there were now going to be all kinds of official reports filed, and it was going to become pretty darn obvious that Mr. Del Duke had taken 3 kids off district school property to have ice cream and french fries and look at geese, and talk about a terrible timing. There were police involved and social workers already on high alert. This was a nightmare in so many ways. It was crucial that Del look professional, which was one of the hardest things for him to do. He glanced up into the rearview mirror at Willow. She had her eyes closed, yet tears still oozing out of the corners and ran at the intervals down her dark cheeks. He wished that he could think of something to say that would be comforting to her. He was, after all, a trained counselor. And so he turned to the back seat and sputtered, "This is such a big loss." And then exhaled, and more words dribbled out like applesauce from a baby's mouth, just audible lumps. "It's not much consultation, but you'll probably never have this big again," Del continued, unable to stop himself. So that's kind of comforting, knowing that the worst thing in life is already behind you. I mean, once it is behind you, which it won't be for a while, obviously. To Del's horror, her level of distress seemed to increase with every word. What was he talking about? Del cleared his throat and tried to steady his voice as he finished, because this is life, and these things just happen. Wow, did he really say that? How many kids go to school and come home to find that both of their parents are dead, maybe in war-torn Somalia or someplace like that, but then he could legitimately say that these things happen. But here in Bakersfield, that was a total meatball move. Del bit down on the inside of his left cheek and held his mouth closed until he could detect a taste of blood, and that's what it took to shut him up. Whew. We'll start next chapter learning about Mai and Guang Ha's mom, Patty.